My name is Callista Monroe. I'm 39 years old, and for the past 8 years, I gave everything to a company called Northbridge Dynamics. I wasn't just an employee, I was the one they relied on when things broke. Every quarter, I exceeded targets. Every crisis, I stepped in before anyone else even understood what was happening. I trained managers, rebuilt failing systems, and quietly carried responsibilities that were never written in my job description. I didn't complain. I believed hard work would speak for itself. That belief shattered on a gray Thursday afternoon. We were all gathered in the main conference room. I had just finished presenting a strategy that would cut nearly $2 million in operational costs. The room had been quiet-focused. Even Daniel Hayes, my boss, had nodded with approval. Then he stood up, smiled, and said 5 words that erased 8 years of my life. Congratulations to my niece, Vanessa Hayes. For a moment, I thought I misheard him, but then the room filled with polite applause. Vanessa stood up, smiling like she had just earned something monumental. She waved modestly, as if she hadn't skipped years of experience in just 4 months at the company. She'll be our new director of strategic operations. Daniel continued. She brings fresh perspective and energy. Fresh perspective. That was the phrase they always used when experience didn't matter when connections did. Vanessa was his sister's daughter. Everyone knew it. No one said it. I sat there, still holding the presentation remote in my hand. The same presentation he had just praised, before handing my future to someone else. Callista, he added, turning to me. I'd like you to help Vanessa transition into the role. I forced a small smile. Of course, I said, but inside, something didn't break. It cleared, and in that moment, I understood exactly where I stood. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you. I'd also love to know where you're listening from and how old you are. This is a fictional story, inspired by real workplace situations, with a few AI-enhanced details to make it more vivid and engaging. Now, stay with me, and let me tell you what happened next. That moment didn't feel like anger. It didn't even feel like sadness. It felt like clarity. I walked back to my office in silence, closing the glass door behind me as the usual noise of keyboards and conversations faded into the background. My screen was still open from the presentation I had just delivered. Charts, projections, vendor timelines, all the pieces I had spent years building, refining, protecting. And suddenly, none of it felt like mine anymore. I leaned back in my chair and let the memories come, one after another. 8 years. 8 years of staying late when no one asked me to, of answering calls at midnight when shipments were delayed across state lines, of fixing problems no one else even understood, let alone knew how to solve. I remembered the year everything almost collapsed during a supply chain crisis. I was the one who redesigned the entire logistics flow in less than 2 weeks. No bonus, no promotion. Just a handwritten thank you note from Daniel that said, "Your leadership material." Leadership material. I let out a quiet breath. What it really meant was someone they could rely on without ever having to reward. I thought about the weekends I brought my daughter, Lena, into the office because I couldn't afford to fall behind, the vacations I canceled, the promotions that were always next quarter or under review. And now, just like that, the role I had worked toward for nearly a decade had been handed to someone who hadn't even seen a full fiscal cycle, not because she was ready, but because she was connected. I looked down at my hands, steady, calm. That was the part that surprised me the most. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't spiraling. I was done. I turned back to my laptop and opened a blank document. No hesitation this time. No second-guessing. The words came easily, clean and precise, just like every report I had ever written. Subject: resignation notice. I typed slowly, deliberately. 2 weeks notice. Professional tone. Gratitude where it was appropriate. Distance where it was necessary. When I reached the final line, I paused for a second, then added one sentence. Wishing Vanessa success in her new role. A small smile crossed my face. Not bitter, not forced, just certain. I printed the letter, folded it neatly, and placed it into an envelope, for the first time in years. I didn't feel trapped. I felt free. It took me less than 20 minutes to clear my desk, not because I didn't have things, but because most of what I had built was never something I could put into a box. The systems, the relationships, the quiet fixes behind the scenes they lived in me, not in binders or folders. I left the manuals I had written, the process documents, the vendor guides. Let them have everything that looked like structure. I was only taking what mattered. When I stepped into the hallway, the envelope felt light in my hand, but I could already sense the weight it would carry once it was opened. Daniel was standing near the corner office, mid-conversation with someone from finance. He noticed me waiting and gave a quick, familiar smile, the kind he always used when everything was under control. "Callista, great job earlier," he said, turning toward me. That presentation was exactly what we needed. I nodded once and handed him the envelope. "What's this?" he asked. Casual at first. "My 2 weeks' notice?" He chuckled, almost instinctively, like it was a joke he hadn't quite processed yet. But when he saw that, I wasn't smiling back. He opened it. I watched his expression change. The confidence slipped first, then the confusion, and finally, something closer to concern. "You can't be serious," he said, lowering his voice. "Not now. We need you especially right now. You have Vanessa." I replied calmly. His jaw tightened. "Callista, don't do this emotionally. You're reacting. Take a day, think it through." "I already have." He stepped closer, his tone sharpening just enough to reveal the pressure underneath. "This isn't professional. Walking out like this. Right after a decision you didn't agree with." I met his eyes without flinching. "I'm being exactly as professional as I've always been," he exhaled, trying a different angle. "What about your future, your career? You've built something here." "Yes," I said quietly, "I have." And that was exactly why I knew it was time to leave. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hallway noise faded into something distant, irrelevant. "Think about Lena," he added, softer now, almost persuasive. I held his gaze. "I am." Then I turned and walked away. This time, I didn't slow down. The following Monday, I arrived earlier than usual, not out of obligation, but intention. If I was going to leave, I would leave cleanly. No chaos, no loose ends, just clarity. Vanessa was already sitting at the desk that used to be mine, staring at the 3 monitors like they were written in another language. Tabs were open everywhere: reports, vendor logs, dashboards, but nothing seemed connected in her expression. She looked up the moment she saw me, relief washing over her face. "Callista, thank God," she said quickly. "I was hoping you'd come in early. I'm trying to understand the Q2 vendor reconciliation report, but it's a lot." I gave a small nod and pulled up a chair beside her. "Let's walk through it." I opened the system I had built over the years. It wasn't just spreadsheets. It was a living structure, real-time tracking of shipments, layered pricing agreements, vendor behaviors, escalation triggers. Every piece had a reason. Vanessa leaned in, eyes scanning the screen. "How did you even set this up?" she asked. "Time," I said simply. "And a lot of mistakes you only make once." We spent the next hour going through key accounts, Stonewell Manufacturing, Ridgecore Metals, and Delta Freight Systems. Each one carried its own history, its own patterns, its own risks. Vanessa tried to follow, but I could see it, the hesitation, the gaps. "I didn't realize it was this detailed," she admitted quietly. "That's operations," I replied. "It looks simple on the surface. It isn't." Later that morning, Daniel stepped into the office, his tone overly bright. "How's the transition going?" Vanessa gave a nervous smile. "There's just more to it than I expected." He glanced at me briefly, then back at her. "You're in good hands. Callista built the foundation, built it, Past tense. I said nothing. As he walked out, Vanessa turned to me again, her voice softer now. I think I underestimated this role. I didn't correct her. She was just beginning to understand something it had taken me years to learn. By midweek, the first cracks started to show. They weren't dramatic at first, just small things. Easy to miss if you didn't know where to look. An email came in from Stonewell Manufacturing about a delayed shipment to Phoenix. Nothing unusual on the surface, except the tone shorter than usual, less patient. I forwarded it to Vanessa with a quick note suggesting she call Mark Delaney directly. An hour later, I walked past her desk and saw her still typing. "Did you call him?" I asked. She shook her head. "I sent an email. I figured I'd wait for a response." I paused for a second. Mark doesn't check email after 3 p.m. He's been doing this for 30 years. You need to call. Her expression shifted instantly. She picked up the phone without another word. I kept walking. That afternoon, another issue surfaced, this time from Ridgecore Metals. Their invoice didn't match the negotiated discount from the previous quarter. It wasn't a system error. It was a missed detail, a note buried in the CRM that only made sense if you knew the context behind it. Vanessa had used the standard pricing sheet. Technically correct, practically wrong. "They're threatening to pause the order," she said, her voice tight when I reached her desk. "You'll need to call them," I replied, "and fix it before they lose confidence." I watched her scramble to piece things together, flipping between tabs, trying to understand decisions that had been made long before she arrived. It wasn't sabotage, it was inexperience. But to clients, that distinction didn't matter. By Thursday morning, the rhythm of the office had changed. Emails were stacking up, follow-ups were slower, conversations carried a hint of tension. From the outside, everything still looked intact, but I could feel it. The system wasn't failing all at once. It was slipping, one detail at a time. By the end of the week, the situation was no longer subtle. It escalated. An urgent email came in from Copperline Industries, one of our most detail-sensitive clients. The subject line alone was enough to draw attention. Invoice discrepancy, immediate clarification required. I opened it and felt the weight of the mistake immediately. They had been promised a 6.5% adjustment on a bulk order due to previous delivery delays. It wasn't written into the standard contract. It was something I had negotiated directly and logged in the system under internal notes. Vanessa had missed it. The invoice went out at full price. "They're threatening to suspend the order," she said when I approached her desk, her voice barely steady. "I didn't see anything about a discount." "It's in the notes," I replied calmly. "You have to call them, apologize, correct the invoice, and reassure them before this turns into something bigger." She nodded quickly, already dialing, but her hands were shaking. Across the office, I could feel the tension rising. People were speaking more quietly. Messages were being double-checked. Something was off. And everyone knew it. Later that afternoon, Daniel called me into his office. He looked different, less composed, more strained. "I heard about Copperline," he said, rubbing his temples. "Vanessa said you stepped in. I helped. I answered. But this isn't going to be a one-time issue." His eyes lifted sharply. "What do you mean? You put her in a role she doesn't understand yet," I said evenly. "And the system depends on experience, not just process." He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "She'll learn." "Maybe," I said, "but the clients won't wait for that." For a moment, he didn't respond. The silence said enough. Back at my desk, another message came in, this time from Stonewell. 4 unanswered follow-ups. I forwarded it to Vanessa. There was only so much I could do, because at some point, it wasn't about fixing problems anymore. It was about watching them multiply. That night, I was sitting on my couch, laptop open but untouched, a glass of wine resting in my hand. The silence felt different now. Not heavy, not draining, just still. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated for a second before answering. "Is this Callista Monroe?" a calm voice asked. Yes. Who's calling? My name is Adrian Cole. I'm the Director of Operations at Stratos Industrial Group. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I sat up slightly. No, go ahead. We've been hearing your name quite a bit lately, he continued. From clients, from vendors, even from a few people inside Northbridge. That made me pause. We understand you might be in transition, he added. And I wanted to ask if you'd be open to a conversation. I didn't answer immediately. For 8 years. I had been the one proving my value. Now someone was already recognizing it. What kind of role, I asked. Director level, he said without hesitation. Regional operations, full authority over vendor strategy, team structure, and execution, higher compensation. Of course, and flexibility to bring over relationships you've built. If they choose to follow, there it was. Not just an offer, an understanding. I felt something shift inside me. Not excitement, not even pride, relief. I'd be open to talking, I said finally. Good. Adrian replied. I'll have my team reach out first thing tomorrow. After the call ended, I stared at my phone for a long moment, for years. I had been waiting to be seen, to be acknowledged for what I actually carried. And now, without asking, without pushing, someone already had, the next morning. I walked into the office feeling different. Lighter, not because things had improved there, but because, for the first time, I knew I didn't have to stay. By the beginning of the following week, the tension inside Northbridge was no longer contained behind closed doors. It was everywhere. Emails weren't just delayed now. They were being escalated. Clients who used to be patient were starting to question decisions. Timelines, even leadership. Conversations in the hallway grew quieter, sharper. People weren't just working, they were watching, waiting for something to break. It didn't take long. A message came through from Ridgecore Metals confirming they were placing their Q3 contract under review. Another from Stonewell Manufacturing, asking again who was actually managing their account. This time, they didn't bother hiding their frustration. We need consistency. They wrote, right now, we're not getting it. I didn't respond. I simply forwarded everything to Vanessa and copied Daniel. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. Callista, can you come to my office? Daniel's voice was tight, controlled, but strained underneath. When I stepped in, I saw it immediately. Papers scattered across his desk, coffee untouched. A man who was used to control, losing it. We need to talk, he said, skipping any pretense. I remained standing. We've had 2 major accounts raise concerns this morning, he continued. And there's talk of pulling back contracts if things don't stabilize. I nodded slightly. None of it was surprising. He exhaled, then looked at me differently this time. I think we may have moved too quickly, he admitted. Vanessa, she's not fully ready yet. Silence settled between us. I've spoken with corporate. He added, there could be an opportunity to restructure leadership, bring you in at director level. You'd oversee operations, final say on key decisions. The same role, the same responsibility, now suddenly available. I met his eyes calmly. I appreciate the offer, I said. Then I paused, just long enough for the words to land. But I've already accepted another one, for the first time. He had no response. My final days at Northbridge didn't feel like closure. They felt like aftermath. I spent that last week documenting everything I could. Vendor protocols, escalation paths, client preferences, details I had carried in my head for years. I organized them carefully. Not for Daniel, not even for the company, but for the people who would inevitably be left trying to hold things together. Vanessa stopped by more than once. At first, it was small questions. Then it became entire systems she couldn't navigate without help. I answered what I could, guided where it made sense. But I could see it in her eyes now, the realization. This wasn't a promotion. It was pressure she wasn't ready to carry. On my last Friday, the office was quieter than usual, not calm, just uncertain. Conversations ended quickly when I walked past. People avoided eye contact, as if acknowledging me would mean admitting something had already gone wrong. By the afternoon, my desk was empty. A framed photo of Lena, a few notebooks, and my coffee mug sat inside a small box. That was all I took with me. As I walked toward the exit, I heard my name one last time. Callista. I turned. Daniel stood near his office, his posture stiff, his expression controlled but strained. "We're losing accounts," he said. "Skipping everything else. Ridgecore is pulling back. Stonewell is reconsidering. If this continues, it will," I said calmly. His jaw tightened. "Clients are asking for you. They're calling directly." I held his gaze. "They're asking for consistency," I replied, "and they know where to find it." I didn't wait for his response. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Cleaner. That evening, my phone buzzed. A message from Stonewell. "Heard you're moving. We'd like to continue working with you." Another from Ridgecore. "Let us know where you land." I looked at the screen for a moment, then set the phone down. I hadn't taken anything from Northbridge, but somehow, everything that mattered was already following me. 5 weeks later, my life looked completely different at Stratus Industrial Group. I wasn't starting over, I was finally starting right. My office was simple: a desk, a whiteboard filled with strategy notes, and a growing list of vendors and clients who trusted me enough to follow. No politics, no silent competition, just clarity, responsibility, and the space to lead the way I always knew I could. Within the first month, 3 of my former clients had already transitioned their accounts, not with dramatic announcements, not with conflict, just quiet decisions backed by one simple reason: they trusted me. Adrian stopped by my office one morning, holding a printed industry report. "You might want to see this," he said. The headline was short but telling. "Northbridge Dynamics announces leadership restructuring amid client losses." I read it once, then set it down. Daniel had stepped down. Officially, it was framed as a strategic transition. Unofficially, everyone knew what it meant. Too many contracts under review. Too much instability to ignore. Vanessa had been reassigned, not removed, but repositioned into a junior analytical role under supervision. A softer way of correcting a mistake that had never been hers alone. I didn't feel satisfaction reading it, just balance. Later that week, I received a message from her, a short one. She thanked me for the documentation I had left behind, said she finally understood how much went into the role, admitted she hadn't been ready and that she was learning now. "The right way," I replied simply. "Keep learning, earn it next time." Months passed, and Stratos grew stronger. I built a team based on capability, not connections, people who showed up, followed through, and understood the weight of responsibility. One evening, sitting quietly at home, I realized something I hadn't before, for years. I thought recognition was something you had to fight for. Prove enough, stay long enough, sacrifice enough. But real value doesn't work like that. The right place doesn't make you beg to be seen. It sees you immediately. And once you understand that, you stop chasing approval and start choosing where you belong. If you want to leave with dignity, like I did, choosing your self-worth over staying where you're undervalued, right, great. So I know you made the right decision. If you want to stay and fight for recognition in the same place, right, stay. Or choose your own path and let me know. I read all comments. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, stayed loyal long enough, someone would eventually recognize my worth. But I was wrong. This journey taught me something deeper. Your value isn't something others grant you. It's something you must recognize first. The moment I stopped waiting for approval and chose myself, everything changed. I didn't lose anything. I finally found where I truly belonged. If this story resonated with you, you're someone who understands the importance of self-worth and growth. Be proud of that. Let's build a community of people who choose value over comfort. Subscribe to the channel. Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and share this video so it can reach others who might need it today.